Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 1 English lesson on sentences and fragments. And before we start with our lesson on sentences and fragments, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 1. Once you select the subject of language arts, grade 1, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to the subject of sentences and fragments. So our chapter is sentences and fragments. Our subject is English language arts, grade 1, and the lessons that we are going to be focusing on today under the chapter of sentences and fragments is to find the complete sentences and to complete the sentences. So we're going to find the complete sentences, and then we're also going to complete the sentences. All right, so now we're going on to what a sentence is, right? Because remember, our chapter is sentences and fragments. And a sentence has a naming part and it has an action part, right? So a sentence, it has basically a naming part, and a sentence has an action part, meaning it has a noun and it has a verb. And it also tells a complete thought. So a sentence, it tells a complete thought, right? Or it expresses a complete thought. For example, my brother jumps in the pool. which means that my brother is the naming part, which is the noun, and jumps is the action part, which is the verb. So once a sentence has a naming part, which is a noun, as well as an action part, which is a verb within that sentence, then it is a complete thought. So a sentence, it has a naming part, which we said it's a noun, and it has an action part, which is a verb. And once it has both noun, which is a naming part, as well as a verb, which is an action part, and then it tells a complete thought. So it's a complete sentence. And there we have our first sentence where we have both noun as well as our verb. My brother jumps in the pool. We have our noun, which is our naming part. It is my brother. Jumps is the action that the brother does, which is the verb. He jumps in the pool. I play outside every day. So I play outside every day, which means that I is our noun and play is our verb. So there we have both our naming part, which is our noun, and the action that the naming part does, which is play. And remember, a sentence, sorry, it always starts with a capital letter. So a sentence, it starts with a capital letter. And a sentence, it ends with a period, right? Or it ends with another end mark. And another end mark can either be an exclamation mark or it can be a question mark. And a question mark, it's when we ask a question, right? Say if we ask a question like what, when, where, how, it basically ends with a question mark. An exclamation, it's when we are either stressing a point, showing surprise, right? And that is when we show the exclamation mark. Then we have sentence fragments, right? So we see that a sentence, it has a naming part as well as an action part, right? And it tells a complete thought. Then we have a sentence fragment. Because remember, we are doing sentences and fragments. So fragment, it is a sentence that is missing either the subject, which is the naming part, or the noun, which we can call the naming part, or it's missing the main verb, or we can say it's the action part. So sentence fragment, it is a sentence that is either missing a subject, which is called the naming part. Another word for naming part is called the noun, or it is missing a main verb, which is the action part. So it's missing either one of that. So it does not express or does not tell us a complete thought. And an example of that is because of the rain. So because of the rain. So now it's like you're asking yourself, what about the rain? So you're asking yourself, what about the rain? Which means that we are missing the naming part. So we're missing the naming part, which is the noun within that sentence, which means that this is not a complete thought. It is not a complete sentence. We call that a sentence fragment. All right, so once again, we have a sentence, right? And a sentence has a naming part, which is a noun, and it has an action part, which is a verb, and it tells a complete thought. And a sentence, it starts with a capital letter and it ends with a period or an end mark, which is either an exclamation mark or a question mark. And then we have a sentence fragment, right? And with a sentence fragment, it is a sentence that is either missing a subject, which is the naming part or the noun, or it is missing the main verb, which is the action part. So it can basically miss either one of those. It's either a sentence with only a naming part or a sentence with only an action part. And in this sentence, which is because of the rain, it only has an action part and it is missing the naming part. And we are doing our tutorial lesson on A plus students.ca. So we're doing our tutorial lesson on A plus students.ca. All right. So now we're going to find the complete sentences. And we see the sentence has a naming part, and we see the sentence has an action part, and it tells a complete thought, right? And we made an example of my brother jumps in the pool, all right? So my brother being the naming part and jumps being our action part. The same with I play outside every day, I being the naming part and play being our action part. And we see the sentence, it always starts with a capital letter and it always ends with a period or another end mark, which we said can either be an exclamation mark or it can be a question mark. All right, so now if we look at this sentence, right, it says, Dad paints the house. If we look at the sentence, which is Dad paints the house, right? Do you think this is a complete sentence, or do you think this is a fragment where it's either missing a subject, missing a naming part, or it's missing a action part? Or do you think this is a complete sentence where it has a naming part as well as an action part? All right, so if we look at the sentence, right, then we can say the sentence is a complete thought. So this is a complete sentence because it is both naming part, which is a noun, as well as an action part, which is the verb, which means that dad, right? Dad is the naming part, which is the noun, and paints is our action part, which is our verb. So which means that this is a complete sentence. Now, if we look at this sentence, walked to school. Do you think walk to school is a complete sentence, or do you think it is a fragment? So walked to school, is it a complete sentence or is it a fragment? All right, so if we look at this, then we can say walked to school. So the question is who walked to school, right? Which means that this is a fragment, right? So this is a fragment or sentence fragment, right? And it is missing, it's missing a noun, which is called a naming part. Because now you're asking yourself, who walked to school? Because walked is an action part, which is the verb. But now the question is, who walked to school? All right, which means that this is not a complete sentence because it only has an action part. It does not have a naming part. So which means that this is a sentence fragment. All right, let's look at the next sentence. All right, so now if we look at these two sentences, which one of these sentences do you think is a sentence, like a complete sentence, and which one do you think is a fragment, a sentence fragment? The first one says, Dale loves peanuts. And the second sentence is, two blue eggs. So Dale loves peanuts and 2 blue eggs. All right, so now if we look at the two sentences, right? The first one says Dale loves peanuts, right? Which means that Dale is a noun, loves is a verb, right? Which means that this is a complete sentence because it has both naming word as well as action verb, action part, right? And then we have 2 blue eggs. 2 blue eggs. And if we look at the word 2 blue eggs, right? Then basically 2 blue eggs is our naming part, which is our noun. But it has no action part. It has no verb, right? Which means that this is a fragment. Because it is missing a verb. So it's got no verb, which means that it is missing a verb. Because remember, we said that a complete sentence, it has both noun, which is a naming part, as well as a verb, which is an action part. All right, so now we're going on to our test, where we're going to find the complete sentences. So we need to find the complete sentence. Mom is ready. Ask for help. Ran away. Discovered the cure. So we need to select the complete sentence. So is it mom is ready, asked for help, ran away, discovered the cure. Which one do you think is a complete sentence that has both naming part, which is a noun, as well as action part, which is a verb? All right, so if we want to find the complete sentence, and then we will say mom is ready, right? Because it has a naming part as well as an action part. The others are either missing a naming part or an action part. So mom is ready is correct. Wins the prize. They ride the bus. Slammed the door. Baked a cake. So we need to find the complete sentence that has both naming part, which is a noun, as well as the action part, which is a verb. So we need to find the complete sentence. Wins the prize. They ride the bus. Slammed the door. Baked a cake. It shouldn't be missing either one. It should have both naming part as well as action part. And if we find the complete sentence, then we can say they ride the bus, because they being the naming part, ride being the action part. So they ride the bus is a complete sentence. So we need to find the complete sentence. One wish, it fits because it was raining, for better or worse. So one wish, it fits because it was raining, for better or worse. Which one is a complete sentence? All right, so if we want to find the complete sentence where it has both naming part as well as an action part, right? So is it one wish? It fits because it was raining, for better or worse. All right, so we can say this either it fits or it can be because it was raining. Oh, so it fits, right? So it can be referring to sneakers, can refer to slippers, can refer to sandals, can refer to Uggs, and fits meaning if you put it on, then it fits you perfectly well. All right, we need to find the complete sentence. The new teacher, she lost the book, slammed the door, ran to the store. So we need to find the complete sentence. So is it the new teacher? She lost the book, slammed the door, ran to the store. A complete sentence. which has both noun, which is your naming part, as well as verb, which is your action part. All right, so if we find the complete sentence, right, that has both naming part as well as an action part, then we can say she lost the book, right? Because she being the naming part, lost is the action. So she lost her book. Now we're going to complete the sentence, right? And remember, when we complete the sentence, then it needs to have a naming part as well as an action part. All right, so we're going to complete the sentence, right? It says Bob and I. So Bob and I is the naming part, right? So which means that in order for you to complete the sentence or to show a complete sentence, you can basically put any action part in to show the completed sentence, right? So in this case, we can say Bob and I, we can say try new food. So try being our action part. So Bob and I being the naming part, which is the noun, try being the verb. So the children is basically our naming part, which is our noun. So now to complete that sentence, we can say the children watch a movie, which means that watch is a verb. And that is a complete sentence. It has a naming part as well as an action part. All right. And then we also have dad, right? Which is our naming part. And we can say makes lunch. So makes being our verb, which is our action part. So which means that this is a complete sentence, right? All right, so now we're going on to our test where we're going to complete the sentence. So we're now going to complete the sentence by choosing the correct either word or words to complete the sentence, to fill in the missing words. All right, so gives me the ball. So gives me the ball. Do I say my friend gives me the ball or before school gives me the ball? So who gives me the ball? Is it my friend, which is the first one, or before school gives me the ball? So the question is who gives me the ball? All right. So if we were to select the complete sentence, then we will say, my friend gives me the ball. So my friend being the naming part, gives being the action part. So my friend is the correct answer. Won a prize. Do we say the girls won a prize or maybe won a prize? So the question is who won a prize? Is it the girls or maybe? So the who won a prize? Do we say the girls won a prize or maybe won a prize? All right, so we need to complete the sentence and we will say the girls won a prize. So the girls being our naming part, which is our noun, won being our verb, which is our action part. So the girls won a prize. The boys, do we say stop and or the boys look for bugs? The boys stop and or the boys look for bugs. Which one is the correct words in order to complete the sentence? Stop and or look for bugs. Something that the boys are doing. All right, so we can say the boys look for bugs. Right? So the boys being our naming part, look or look for bugs being our action part. Do we say never opened the box? Or Nina and I opened the box? We need to get a naming part. Is it never opened the box? Or Nina and I opened the box? So never open the box, or do we say Nina and I opened the box? All right, in order to get the complete sentence, we can say Nina and I opened the box. Meaning Nina and I is our naming part, which is the noun. Opened is our verb. All right, last one. To complete the sentence, do we say after we picked the pony or I picked the pony? So which one is a complete sentence? Do we say after we picked the pony or I picked the pony? All right, to show the complete sentence, we can say I picked the pony because I being the naming part, picked being the action part. All right, so that is now it for our chapter on sentences and fragments. And we said a complete sentence has both naming part, which is a noun, as well as action part, which is a verb. And once it has both naming part as well as an action part, and then it shows a complete sentence, right? If it is either missing a noun, a naming part, or it is missing an action part, then we call that a fragment because it does not complete a complete sentence, right? It is called a fragment. So it needs to have a complete sentence, needs to have a naming part, and it needs to have an action part. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on sentences and fragments. Thank you very much, grade ones, for joining our class. And I really hope that you are going to have a good day further. Goodbye.